Hey everyone, and welcome back to my Intro to Unreal Engine 4 tutorial series. In this video I'm going to go over how you can use your transformation tools to move things around and how to use snapping to keep them on a grid. So I know I've already gone over the transformation tools, but I'll do a quick review again. You can move things like any other 3D modeling package or any 3D software, really. You can move, rotate, and scale. That's how you can manipulate objects. So move is obvious. You move it. Rotate, pretty obvious too. You can rotate it. You can see here this is what's called a widget, and depending on which color I highlight, you can see how it highlights itself yellow. That'll determine which way I'm manipulating this. So in this case, I'm spinning it along the red, which you can see here corresponds to the x-axis. So I'm spinning it along the x-axis. Or alternately, you can use just hard numbers. You can rotate it with this visual system, or you can rotate it in here. So I could type in exactly 90 if I wanted it, or exactly 45 if I want that. It's good to be precise, especially if you are making games. You can also, my favorite thing about this that a lot of people don't do is if you click, you can click drag and kind of use it as a slider. Instead of like clicking and then trying to type numbers in, you can just kind of click, drag, move it around. So you can also see that this thing is snapping. Like as I move it, it's not like a smooth movement. It's kind of snapping. It's even more obvious here if you try to rotate it. You can see it only rotates in increments of 15. And that is all set up right up here. So we have snapping for movement, rotation, and scale right here. And then here's our rotation one, which is already set to 15. If I set that to 10, now I can rotate things in 10-degree increments. Or, you can go 90 if you only want it to do 90-degree increments. Can't really tell that with a cube, but choose whichever increments work for you. And if you don't want any snapping at all, you can turn it off just by hitting that button right there. If it's orange, it's on. If it's white, it's off. So now I can rotate it freely to any degree I want. It's good to keep things on grid though, especially if you're designing like a platformer or something like that, or anything that has like modular buildings where you're going to want to be able to quickly snap some walls together and not see like a seam. So as you can see here, let me show you a couple of viewports. In the other viewports, if you guys don't know, you can click here to open up the quad view. That's what it's called. So you can see back, right, top, and you can see the grid here. So you can see this thing's on a grid, and as I move it, it snaps. Right now we're at 5, increments of 5. I can change that to 10, and you can see the grid gets bigger, for lack of a better word. 50, it's even a more separate grid. And now it's really easy to snap this guy together. Let's say if I do 100, now each move is one width of that wall. Here's another trick, is if you hold Alt and you move something. So if I'm holding Alt and I just move this asset, it will make a copy of itself. And since I have it snapping, it snaps right into place. You can do that as many times as you need, and that's a good way to line things up. And let's say if I want it, let's say I know that my guy only has a jump that reaches maybe 2 grid spaces at 200 units at this point. So like if that's the jump, you know exactly that that's your jump distance that you can make. That's a pretty good example of how to use the grid. There's also let's see, I'll pull another one out over here. There's also a couple other things we can go over. So that's how you snap with, snapping with movement, rotation, and scale. Let me show you one more thing where we can change the pivot point. So let's say I have this guy. I'm going to have to drop this down quite a bit. And let's say if I wanted to kind of rotate this for whatever reason and kind of have it going this way. It's not going to work because right now the pivot point is in the center. Let me change this too a little bit. So it'll rotate from the center. There will come a time where you want to rotate from a specific point. Like if I wanted to rotate it along here, like say if I'm making a door, for example. That's maybe a better example. I'm making this into a door, just for argument's sake. I don't want to spin it, this way. That's not what a door does. I want to spin it from here. So that's called the pivot point, which is that little white dot in there. If you hold middle mouse down and move it, you can move that pivot point. And, oops. One more try. Move the pivot point with the middle mouse down. And then now when I rotate it, it rotates from wherever I put that pivot point. Right there. So if I wanted that to be forward and then maybe... It's kind of hard to eyeball it, but, be a little more precise when you're doing it for real. But now it kind of hinges, So that is snapping. Oh, one more thing. So if I'm doing that and I want my pivot here or whatever, as soon as I click it again, it moves the pivot back. So if I want to keep my pivot, I can just middle mouse down the middle of the transformation widget and then right click the asset, go to pivot and set as pivot offset. So now when I click off and click back on, it keeps my pivot. And I can have two different types. So that's it as far as snapping, pivots, and transformation tools go. I guess a quick one would be to remember these short keys. If you hover over anything, it'll show you the short keys. But these are really handy, especially if you navigate like I do, where you hold down the right mouse and use WASD to fly around. Then your hand is already on the W, and all you got to do is press WER. They're right next to each other, and that'll cycle through the 3 different modes. Alternately, you could press spacebar, and it'll cycle through. One last thing would be, I guess, to make note of, there is a difference between local and world space. So world space is set. The whole world, 0 is right in the middle. If you were to do a local rotation of this thing, it'll be different because it's based off of this thing's actual location, not the world's location. We'll get into why you need that later. But that should be it for now. In the next video, I'm going to go over how to create your own geometry and how to edit it to create things like houses, stairs, simple level designs and all that stuff. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.